Hey guys, welcome to Solo ReacTalk. Today I'm going to be reacting to races and classes of Riot's MMO according to lore by Necrit. If you want to check out my previous reactions to other Necrit's MMO Riot game videos centered around the Riot game League of Legends MMO. Remember, the playlist card will be at the top. Just click on it and you'll be able to access them. If you want to check out the original video as well as Necrit's YouTube channel, the links are in the description below. Sorry guys, my mouth is very jumpy. I don't know I don't know what's wrong with me right now. But yes, let's start. 3, 2, 1, go.
Well, I'm back. Last time we had a look at the world of Riot's MMO, and we talked about how the overall world design has been done for a few years now. If you have no idea what League's universe is about, I would recommend watching that one first. But now that we learned about the basics, we can dive into the other big MMO topic: the playable races and classes. When it comes to the races, just like the world, they are pretty much done. Over the years, the lore fleshed out the races of Runeterra, and now they each have their own unique story. In fact, at this point it feels like we know Riot will not make up a brand new race. Of course, they could always theoretically do it, but I seriously doubt they would. Because that would be like forcing a new race into the world of Lord of the Rings. It would feel off among all the already established rules. I strongly doubt you wanna put a bunny person next to Aragorn. With that said,
I don't know. I mean, it could be interesting, I guess. Oh gosh.
worry, because the lore will allow Riot to make up new races and make them feel natural. I'll show you their clever system in just a moment. But for now, just know that yes, we already know the races of this world. So the question is not going to be what races Riot is going to make up. The question is going to be, from the races that already exist, which ones will be playable? And perhaps more importantly, how will they be playable? You see, a few years back I released a similar video where we talked about the classes and the races together with TB Skyen. And today, I would not recommend you watch that video. Back then, I was still clinging onto the idea that faction-based MMOs were a good idea. It worked for WoW, and it worked for my guilty pleasure, WildStar. Unfortunately, what I didn't know is that merely a year later, the idea of faction-based MMOs would crumble to dust. That's because factions have a massive flaw. Besides the fact that PvP is almost guaranteed to be one-sided. I mean, who would want to play for the losing side? Especially if there is no compensation. Classic WoW is a perfect proof of that. Not to mention New World. But also, if you split everyone into two sides, you are splitting up your player base. And that is almost never a good idea. You simply don't want to prevent people from playing together. The reason why in the past it worked for WoW is because Blizzard heavily played into the faction pride. People were proud to fight for the Horde or the Alliance. But even back then, it really wasn't perfect. And then people started min-maxing the game and they realized that factions didn't matter. And that's where Riot has the edge.
Yeah, about the factions, you know, I'm not entirely sure whether it was really a bad idea. Yes, it worked for World of Warcraft for a very long time, and I think it still does have its space and its opportunity to work in, you know, in other MMOs. Maybe not. I'm not sure. But in World of Warcraft, definitely, you know, the Horde and the Alliance are like the cornerstones of World of Warcraft. You know, I think it's one of the very first things that you identify yourself with. Whether you're a part of the Alliance, then you choose your race there, or you're part of the Horde and you choose your race there. And you know, there are many stories that are centered around these two factions in the game. You know, it what produces most of the storylines in World of Warcraft. And then when there is an existential threat, something that threatens all of Azeroth, you know, then the two sides join together. Yes, they don't join together, you know, should I say, like physically, like the players from both sides join together and fight against the existential threat. But through the cinematics, it gives that impression, I should say, and I find that quite cool. That yes, Azeroth is always in continuous war between these two factions, but whenever there is something that threatens Azeroth, then they join forces together and work together to defeat a common enemy. And it's a very cliche kind of trope kind of thing that not only games but also movies and TV series do. When you have your superheroes, you have your villains, and sometimes they will work together to defeat something that's far greater than both of them. So yeah, I like it. I don't know, I like it. Maybe other people don't like it, but I like that kind of setting. But let's hear what Riot is going to do different with this MMO.
You may know that League of Legends has a lot of different regions, where they all act independently and they all have unique relationships with their neighbors. Because of this, forcing faction alliances into this world would ruin the already established lore. So PvP factions are most likely not going to be a thing. However, despite that, League absolutely has faction pride. People love it when a new Shuriman champion is announced, because people love that place. And people love it when the new champion is not Ionian, because goddamn we have too many Ionians. Nearly every League of Legends player has a favorite region. And you bet when the MMO comes out, people will want to play for that region. And this is where the brilliance of Riot's world kicks in. You see, the fundamental lore of League of Legends is based around the idea that anyone can be from any region. After an event the story refers to as the Westward Migration, races mixed up all around the world. So it's not like there is a furry region where you can only see furries. There are definitely regions where you can see more furries, but this world doesn't have exclusives.
So Runeterra has had its own global migration, global integration, globalization kind of situation. That's interesting. That's interesting. It's certainly different from what's going on in World of Warcraft and with Azeroth. People are generally still pretty much in their own same camps. They haven't yet crossed that line of having intermigration and interconnection between the various races. And that's what also fuels that faction-based kind of storylines and gaming mechanics. In Runeterra, it seems like these guys have taken a different path. I don't want to say they've progressed. Each path is different. Each path takes them to different futures and different outcomes. Azeroth is going that way. Runeterra is going this way. And yeah, it's actually quite interesting how in League of Legends they are making all of these different races far more connected, and it also kind of disables that thing of factions. Of course you still have your empires like the Noxus Empire and the, what do they call them again? I forgot. Not Piltover, not Ionia. Who is it? Yes, Demacia. Yes, the Demacia Kingdom as well. You still have those type of factions, I'm assuming, but it's quite interesting that the entire population of Runeterra have all been mixed up in different regions on the planet. So yeah, it's good.
This means that when you're picking up what you want to play, besides just picking a race and a class combination, I strongly suggest Riot also allows people to pick their origin, with the origin being the starting region. Without a system like this, you would force all human champions to be, for example, Noxian. And that is simply not how this world works. So, I've been mumbling about how this world works for quite a while. So now, let's actually dive into all the races that exist in this universe. Spoiler alert, League doesn't have too many different races, because it's focusing on depth over variety. Of course, as it is with any RPG, there is the human race. But it would be cool if the humans varied depending on their origins. For example, if you pick a human from the Freljord, they would be an Iceborn and they would have extra frost resistance. A Demacian could have a bit more magic resistance, Ionians could have a bit more nature resistance, Shuriman's heat resistance, and so on. I think it's going to be crucial for Riot to preserve the feeling of every origin feeling at least slightly different. This is an RPG after all, and despite the fact that balancing is usually a big issue, I strongly believe these RPG elements have to be preserved. But if Riot is afraid of people min-maxing the game from the very beginning, focusing on the origin stat with the most value, Riot can always do the safe thing and only give each origin different customization. In the Freljord, people tend to be more pale with lush beards and Nordic tattoos all over their bodies.
Nods.
Shurimans have the classic dreadlock style. People from Bilgewater have the pirate crew tattoos. Piltovans are your fancy mustache people, and Ionians have the wild untamed hair and beards. So even without special origin stats, I do believe these unique character customizations would enhance the region pride too. So that's what humans would be about. Pretty versatile and nothing too special in an RPG world. So now let's have a look at the more unique races. After humans, the second most spread out race are the Vastaya. As we mentioned in the last video, the Vastaya are a race that came to be after humans started mating with magical animals.
Okay, before he continues, let me just write this down as well. Playable races. Vastaya, how do you spell that out? Is it Vasta? Yeah, YA, I think. Yeah, okay. Hopefully I'm right.
But the thing is, depending on where they are from, there are loads of different kinds of Vastaya. From cat boys to fox girls to lizard girls.
Oh yes. Oh yes, oh yes. Oh.
In fact, here's a family tree of all the Vastayan tribes, and even this doesn't cover all of them. And this is where Riot can pull off something genius. As I said, this world already has set rules, so it would be very difficult to introduce a brand new race into this universe. However, it is going to be very easy to just make up a new Vastayan tribe. So I propose that Riot doesn't make the Vastaya as a playable race overall, but instead it would be cool if Riot let the specific tribes to be playable races. This would leave the door open for them to introduce new playable races later down the line. If they cross off all the Vastaya at once, they kinda shoot themselves in the foot. But I know, here I go mumbling about how the world works again. So let's have a look at some of the specific tribes. When I say Vastaya, most people think of Ari. She comes from the Vasani that look like foxes. Although her tribe is mostly gone, the lore can justify new members to be found.
What do you mean gone? Are they dead? Or are they going extinct in some sort of way? What's going on?
So, they can be playable. The Kilash tribe comes from the jungles between Shurima and Ishtal. These lion-like people are known for hunting dangerous beasts, and they take great pride in trophy collecting. It's the average mount collector. The Shimon tribe are monkey-like people from Ionia. While their older members are very wise, their younger members can be very goofy. The Otrani come from Mount Targon, resembling the classic goat people. Their hobbies are taking care of the Stellarcorns. The Lothland tribe are Ionians who resemble bird people. This tribe likes to combine the art of dancing with lethal assassinations. The Uvikat are something close to lizards, though they do have the ability to shapeshift. Out of all of the other tribes, these are the closest to their pure blood ancestors. And we also technically have the Marai, the fish people whom I doubt are going to be playable.
Mermaids and mermen. Say it with me. Mermaids and mermen. Not fish people. Okay, maybe they are fish people, but mermaids and mermen.
Imagine modeling boots for them. Now, these were the more pure blood tribes, but there are
No. Necrit, I'm sure that they can slither on land. They don't have to be walking. I'm sure they can slither, like a snake. So yeah, this guy.
Many more Vastaya who don't fit any of these. For example, Set has an Ionian Vastayan mother and a Noxian human father, so he doesn't really have a tribe. Long story short, the Vastaya are an incredibly versatile race and Riot can use them in a million different ways. This is where they can really go wild. But that's it for the Vastaya. So now, let's have a look at the third most popular race, the Yordles. These are the classic RPG tiny people. In League of Legends, people either adore them or hate them.
I adore them. I remember the Yordle in Arcane. He was such a cute old man, with his fluffy hair all over him. Like really, he just seems like such a baby. But he's an old man, so you can't really say, "Oh, how cute." No, because it's an old man. So yeah, they're cool and they live for a very long time, if I'm not mistaken. Because the one from Arcane, he lived for a very very long time. Like he was one of the founding members of Piltover, if I'm not mistaken, right? So yeah, that guy is extremely old. He's like Yoda in terms of being experienced, wise, old, and small. Yeah.
No in between. Kinda like those guys. But not those guys, everyone hates them. There is no
I don't hate the gnomes. They're cool. They create technology. What's not to like about that?
doubt in my mind that Yordles will be playable. Even though they have an interesting catch. You see, unlike all the other races on Runeterra, Yordles are immortal. They are essentially modes of magic that come from a hidden magical realm known as Bandle City.
Okay, I thought they lived for a very long time. I didn't know that they were actually immortal, and that they come from a magical realm. Wow. Wow. Okay, these guys are cool.
And because they are made of magical essence, when they die, we don't really know what happens. But we assume they return to the Bandle City and there they respawn. With that said, the lore suggests that maybe Yordles can die, but they just can't die of old age. But let's ignore that.
So when they die, they reincarnate back in their homeland. They reincarnate, and then do they still retain all their memories, or are they coming back, with a clean slate? They don't know anything. They don't know anyone. They're just babies, and they have to be taught everything all over again. This is interesting. This is very interesting.
It's a massive rabbit hole. So, when it comes to gameplay, at least corpse running is going to make sense for them. Now, because Yordles are immortal, in most cases they are always happy and cheerful. Even their home realm is very colorful because of that. But then there is also Vex, a Yordle champion who has recently been added into League of Legends, who gives Yordles an interesting perspective. You see, unlike all the other Yordles, Vex hates living. She hates the bright colors and the cheerfulness. It's the average League player. So Vex is constantly in deep depression and agony. All she wishes for is to leave this world, but she can't, because Yordles can't die. Anyway, just like all the other races, Yordles can be found all around Runeterra.
But Vex, what do you expect will happen to you after you die? Because I can assure you now, there's probably an afterlife for you guys. So even when you're dead, technically, your soul is still going to be alive, and it's going to be in that afterlife world. And will you be satisfied then? I'm not entirely sure. What do you expect will happen after you die, really? She kind of reminds me of the Watchers, because the Watchers also want to stay asleep. They don't want to be kept up awake by this bright shining universe, that's in their realm. So probably she just wants everything to be finished and ended. So I'm wondering, is she going to join the Watchers maybe? Because the Watchers have the same, plans, to end all life in the universe. So why not join them and see if they can give you your wish of, your everlasting immortality being taken away from you and you die permanently. Yeah. Or maybe she has joined them already. Yeah.
There is Poppy in Demacia, Kled in Noxus, Kennen in Ionia, Rumble in Shurima, and so on. But now, so far we have only covered the races which I'm pretty sure will launch with the MMO. The humans, the Vastaya and the Yordles are the core of this world. So now we are diving into the races that still exist in this universe. But it's going to be up to Riot if they make them playable. First of all, there are the Minotaurs. The Minotaurs are different from the Vastaya because they don't have magical ancestors. They are just a standalone race. Originally, the Minotaurs controlled the mountains south of Noxus, but because Noxus is Noxus, soon they absorbed the Minotaurs into their empire. With that said, some Minotaurs fled the tyranny of Noxus and they joined the other regions. A great example is Kryl, the Minotaur fighting in the elite armies of Demacia. And yes, the Minotaurs also have the stereotypical sexy female version in this universe, so they can easily be turned into a playable race. Next, in Bilgewater, there is an incredible amount of weird fishy people. A lot of these could be really cool playable races when Bilgewater gets its expansion. Although modeling helmets for a hammerhead shark is going to be interesting. We also can't forget about the trolls. Previously I showed you the ice trolls, but there are also the sand trolls. And here's an interesting fact for League veterans. We have never seen a sand troll, but because of Ezreal's adventures, we know they exist. They should be around Icathia, which is where Jax is from, who also has 3 fingers by the way. So it is extremely likely that the mysterious Jax is a sand troll. Regardless, the majority of trolls are united under Trundle, the self-proclaimed Troll King, who is fighting in the service of Lysandra, who is a baddie even though she is morally right. So since the majority of the trolls are our enemies, I doubt they will be a playable race. Lastly, let's not forget that this universe also has Yetis. Fun fact, before everything got frozen, the Yeti civilization was very advanced. They even had their own technology based around magic. In fact, Willump, the Yeti Nunu is riding on, is a hologram from the Yeti technology. But then, as the civilization disappeared, the Yetis went a bit more ferocious. So no, they won't be playable either. But that's pretty much it for the races. As I mentioned, there aren't too many different kinds, but that's because Riot is avoiding mimicking other RPGs. That's why there are no dwarves or elves here. Runeterra is simply trying to be unique in every way, and so far, it is working. Now, I also have seen some people asking if Darkin will be playable. To which I have to say, that's like asking if you can play as a god. The Darkin are a corrupted version of the Ascended God Warriors. A single Darkin can annihilate an army of 1,000. In fact, the Darkin known as Aatrox is the only being in existence that managed to kill a celestial god. He stabbed someone wielding the power of the Aspect of War so hard, the Aspect of War died. So no, I don't think Darkin will be playable.
I mean, yeah, wow, these things are so powered up, the Darkin. Yeah, playing as a Darkin, I'm not sure, because, I mean, their existence is corrupted by the Watchers, right? And, their pursuit is not going to be anything you would perceive as good. They're not going to be saving people, or saving kingdoms, or fighting against a particular kingdom or group of people because they're hurting these other people. Their ethos or their activities is just going to be centered around their own power and them conquering other lands probably, or attaining more power, to defeat the celestial aspects probably. So I'm not sure. I mean, if you play as a Darkin, I think you'd have like a totally separate storyline compared to everybody else who's playing League of Legends MMO. You know, everybody else would be dealing with other things, but because you are a Darkin, you are part of the Watchers corruption. So, yeah, I don't know. It just wouldn't work. Then it would be something akin to a faction gameplay, where you are part of the Watchers, you're part of the Darkin, and your task is to bring the Watchers into Runeterra, you see, and then everybody else will become your enemies, thus creating your situation of the Alliance versus the Horde, kind of, yeah.
Anyway, with all the races covered, assuming Riot is going to use the Origin system, this is what the playable races could look like. Humans are versatile, they are everywhere, there is not much to mention there. When it comes to the Vastaya, the common tribes can easily appear in Noxus, Piltover and Bilgewater. These are the regions open to everyone. On the other side, the Vastaya are closely linked to spiritual magic, so you will hardly find one in Demacia, since it is a firmly anti-magic region. And somehow, not many Vastaya were ever mentioned in the Freljord, so Riot doesn't have to force them there. But then we have Shurima, Ionia and Targon. Assuming these would be saved for expansions, they could be used to introduce new playable races. Since I doubt all the newcomers remember the names, the Kilash, Lothlan and Otrani are the Lion People, Bird People and Goat People. When it comes to the Yordles, as I mentioned, they can originate from anywhere, but they do avoid the Freljord and Targon because of the harsh climates. And yes, I know there were some prehistoric Yordles in the Freljord, but after it got covered in ice, they disappeared. And lastly, the Minotaurs can be found in Demacia and Noxus. But it does make sense for some of them to flee to the Freljord, and others to travel to Ionia during the invasion. With all of this said, remember, this is just my decently educated opinion. Since the races are pretty much mixed up all over Runeterra, Riot could also lift the limitations and let every race start in every region. And I would be fine with that. Some story would be wonky, but it wouldn't be anything horrible. Although I still believe some racial exclusivity helps the feeling of RPGs. So, all of this is still only the first half of the video. If you wanna take a break and do your business without washing your hands, now's your chance. This program will continue in 5 seconds.
Hold on. Sorry, the water went into the wrong pipe. Okay.
Did you wash your hands? Okay, so far we only covered the races, which was definitely still the easy part. The much more difficult part are going to be the classes. This is where Riot is facing a great challenge. Partially it's because there are inherently no wrong answers when it comes to designing a class system. You can really make anything work if you put some thought into it. But more than that, Riot is challenged by the setting itself. League of Legends currently has over 160 different champions. They each have unique abilities and together they can define about 40 different classes. I counted them myself. From these, Riot has to pick only a handful to be playable, which means the majority of the classes won't make it in, and people who love those classes will be disappointed. Thankfully, I'm not a designer, so instead of trying to figure out how to make this work, I'm going to show you all the cool, unique classes this universe has. And again, because region pride is a big part of this universe.
Do they have to make classes? You know? I mean, if you've chosen your character, right, and his origin or her origin story, they can wander the world, gaining experience, gaining specialization points, and you know, as the player you can decide what kind of class you are creating for your player. It doesn't have to be put into a box to be said that you are this and this is what you will be for the rest of the game. or you are this and there's no way for you to change it. You know, why don't you give the players that option to decide how they want to build up their own character without it being titled, you know, being a healer or a warrior or a shadow warrior, you know, or something else like that. You know, why give them those types of titles and put them in those boxes? Just allow the players to express how they want their player to be like, so that, you know, even when they join other players, they're able to tell those players, like, guys, this is my character, this is what I'm able to do, this is what I have, and yeah, let's join forces together and to defeat any kind of enemy that we have, you know, or join a guild to defeat any kind of enemy that we have. So yeah, I don't think they should do it with the classes. They should just sidestep that and allow players to do as they please in creating their character. Maybe I'm wrong, yeah, but that's just my opinion on the matter.
You'll see that some of these are tied to specific regions. But not the warrior. That one is different in every single region. So let's start with that. The warriors in this universe provide a unique challenge on top of the already difficult decisions. It's because in every region the fantasy of a warrior is represented by something else. In Demacia it is the Dauntless Vanguard. These are the classic knights in shiny armor pursuing justice. In Noxus the traditional warrior would be part of the Trifarian Legion, which is a rank you can achieve after killing your best sparring friend in combat. These guys rarely use shields. In Shurima, the classic warrior is the warrior of the Golden Army. These are fighting for the glory of the Shuriman Emperor. In Piltover, you would have the Enforcers.
The glory of the Shuriman Emperor, isn't he dead? Or unless if they have a new emperor? Or are they fighting in his memory? Okay.
Simply said, it's the cops. People will know these from Arcane. But in a way, the Wardens are the melee warriors of Piltover. But then...
He'll be fighting with a cane. He or she will be fighting with a cane. A police cane. You know, or maybe a taser gun. I don't know. It's gonna be weird.
In the Freljord, warriors are represented by the Berserks, either wielding axes or giant blades as they worship the primal god known as the Iron Boar. On Targon we have the Warriors of Rakor, which are somewhat themed after the classic Spartan armies. Then in Ionia the classic warrior is known as a Blade Master, with samurai-styled swords that have a rich history in this region. Also there are the Vuju Blade Masters, which are on a totally different level. The Vuju technique is so powerful it was forbidden from using it in combat. The TLDR version of the story is that when Noxus invaded Ionia, Master Yi obliterated entire Noxian legions on his own, before Noxians realized how overpowered he was and they nuked the town where the Vuju Blade Masters were trained. So now there is no more Vuju Blade Masters, just normal Blade Masters.
Well, whoa. Wait. So wait, the Vuju Blade Masters, as a skill, is still existing. It's just that people are not allowed to use it because they fear that the Noxians are going to nuke another one of their places where they're training them. No. This must be a national initiative in Ionia. Everybody who has a sword, you must learn how to use these abilities. You know? No. You can't be beholden by Noxian fears and, you know, them having a nuclear weapon at our doors like that. No. Then you also use the same weapons of mass destruction against them, and let's see if they are prepared to go that far. You know? What an ability. What a chance. And they're gonna throw it away like this? No. Never.
And lastly, the common warrior in Bilgewater would be a brawler. You see, I just named 8 different kinds of warriors. How is Riot going to handle this? I don't know. They could just make one warrior class and then just have the players play out the fantasy while wearing cool armor sets. Or they could make it so that every origin has a different skin of the class. You know, all the abilities would be the same, they would be doing the same numbers, but when a Noxian swings a weapon, there is a bloody trail, and when an Iceborne Berserk swings a weapon, there is a frosty effect. But again, this is for Riot to figure out. Now I'm just going to show you all the unique and interesting classes from this universe. In Demacia, we have the Mage Seekers. These are the people who hunt down mages. They carry with them a stone disc called the Grey Mark. This is the tool that allows them to absorb magic. So this would be sort of an anti-magic class. There are also a lot of iconic Demacian scouts. Also, Demacia has a lot of stories about theaters and bards. But Demacia also brought spotlight onto the Sentinels. The Sentinels of Light are people dedicated to fighting the undead. Because the undead can't really be killed with normal weapons. They use the relic stones that can be forged into any weapon. Be it a crossbow, a gun, a really big gun, or even a sword. Fun fact, in the lore, the Sentinel guns don't have triggers. You have to will it to fire with every fiber of your body. So of course, Lucian canonically fired it with his PP. Lastly, this will be unknown to even veteran League players, but Demacia put a really cool twist onto the Paladin class. You see, in League of Legends, when you play as Garen, his ultimate is to smite his enemies with a giant holy blade. This made people wonder, is Garen a mage? In Demacia? Actually, no. In the lore, Garen has never done anything even similar to this. And that's because there is something even cooler happening. Most people in Demacia pray to the aspect of justice, which they call the Winged Protector. That's why Demacia has a lot of angelic statues. Coincidentally, the aspect of justice can also be found in League. It's Kale. So what's happening is that when Garen is casting his ultimate, it is not him magically creating a holy blade in the sky. It is actually the aspect of justice answering his call. So even though this universe doesn't really have a paladin class, which would be casting holy spells, this would be a really cool alternative.
However, the aspect of justice is using magic, is he not? And Demacia is against people who use magic, are they not? Heck, okay.
People who worship the aspect of justice and let her answer their calls. Pretty cool, but now let's move on to Noxus. Noxians are one of the only regions who harvest black powder, so they also have their own mercenaries with functional guns. In Noxus you can also find a lot of demonic cultists, so I would expect a warlock or a demon summoner, and they also have a few renowned assassin guilds. And the most unique of them all, Noxus also has a circle of hemomancers, people who follow Vladimir, a lord who used to be a hostage to the Darkin, and who eventually learned how to use their blood magic. So these people use the very same blood magic that shaped the Darkin. Then in Shurima, we may find arcane mages. These people follow Zerath, the most powerful mage on Runeterra, whose body has been reduced to nothing but arcane energy. I would honestly love to see this class in-game, because I love the idea of having an Archon form on cooldown. Shurima also has some prophets who can open up tiny portals into the void and summon tiny void creatures. It would be sort of like Warlock in WoW. You know, use the power of the enemy against themselves. Then there are the Sand Shifters, people who can use the sand to create sand mirror images. And we can't forget about the Chronomancers, people who use time magic in a lot of creative, interesting ways. Then in Piltover, right?
The time magic users, those guys are cool. I want that. That's my class. If I were to choose a class, yes.
Riding off of the success of Arcane, people will want to play as a Warden, which is a more elite version of the Enforcers. These would be equipped with sniper rifles and stun grenades. On the crafty side, there are also the Hextech engineers. These are the people who can use science to allow them to wield magic even if they are not mages. And separate from them, there are also the artificers. To them, anything from a powerful arm to blade legs should be possible. And down in Zone, I would love to see some kind of an alchemist, who's using questionable drugs to help his allies. Next we go into the Freljord. Here we can find the Draklorn Inquisitors, which are Lyssandra's followers with abilities themed around true ice. Essentially, these would be frost battle mages. But perhaps the most iconic for the Freljord would be the Shamans. These worship the animalistic primal gods of the Freljord, and all their abilities mimic the primal gods, be it a bear, a fox, a mammoth, or a boar. Then on Targon we would find a lot of people with celestial powers. You know, calling down stars and such. But there are also the Solari who use the power of the sun to enhance their attacks. They also wear massive plated armor, so this would be the tank class. Or the Lunari who use the power of the moon to stay in the shadows. This would be more of an assassin class. Besides these, there are also a lot of star callers around, and even draconic worshippers. Then in Ionia, besides the Voodoo Blade Masters, which would be far too overpowered, some people choose to fight
I think not.
it without a blade. These would be the monks of Hirana. They channel the power of Ionian dragons to empower their limbs. And don't worry, they are a bit different from the traditional monks. They are far more badass. Think less Bruce Lee and more Dragon Ball. But of course, Ionia is also home to the Kinku ninjas. Their goal is to maintain balance in Ionia. This means that when a spirit starts killing people, the ninjas go out and deal with the spirit. And when people start terrorizing the spirits, the ninjas go out and deal with the people. Most of these are your classic ninjas empowered with spiritual magic.
So they are the peacekeepers of Ionia, I'm assuming. Okay.
But some are using the forbidden shadow technique. And while they surely look evil, just like anything in League of Legends, it's not really one-sided. These ninjas are simply using questionable techniques to protect their homeland. And honestly, the shadow ninjas are so iconic for Ionia, I really do believe they will be playable.
So the voodoo swordsmen cannot be used, however these ninjas can be used. No. They must bring back these techniques of the voodoo, swordsplay masters. They need to come back. It's that serious. You can't have a next door neighbor like Noxus and think that, okay, no, we need to just forbid people from using these techniques. No, guys.
Then we get to Bilgewater. Besides all the things that you could do with pirates and monster hunters, the most iconic class of this place are the priests of Buru. The Buru worship the god of motion called Nagake Boros. While they are priests, they fight with full physical strength, while borrowing power from the god to empower themselves. Usually this means the god spawns tentacles to smack the enemies around. But they also have healing powers, so that would be a really cool support class. In Riot's RPG called Ruined King, you can play as Illaoi, the High Priestess of Nagake Boros, and there you can see all the attacks she can pull off. And this takes us to the last place, Ishtal, which will most likely be saved for an expansion. As I mentioned in the last video, Ishtal specializes in only one thing: elemental magic. So if elemental mages become a class, and they should, even in League elemental dragons are a core mechanic, they would come from Ishtal. But that's it for all the unique classes this universe has to offer. Funnily enough, when I was drafting all these classes, I realized a lot of them fall under specific categories. So going with the skin idea for all the classes wouldn't be too unreasonable. But developing so many artistic variations of the classes would be taxing. So overall, I believe Riot should not care about disappointing some players for not including their favorite class. With so many options, it's going to happen anyway. Instead, pick a couple of classes that simply make sense for you. You know, a Blade Master here, an Arcane Mage there, and just have fun. Having fun during development usually translates into great experiences. And I hope I'm not pressuring anyone by stirring up hype. If anything, I'm just happy that people find these videos interesting. And all I'm doing is presenting information that Riot released over the past 10 years. I mean, I know the video is interesting because Asmon only paused 3 times and he said,
"That's fucking cool."
And
I like it a lot.
And
what the fuck? This is actually really cool. I didn't know any of this.
Leave Asmon Gold alone. Oh gosh. Why is he like a punching bag? I mean, people love talking about this guy. I think I should watch some of his videos one of these days. I don't follow him, I don't subscribe to him, but yeah, you know, people keep talking about him, so I think I'm gonna check him out as well, just to see what's going on. But yeah. Okay, Necrit.
that to me marks a big success. Next time we are going to talk about all the already established raid bosses of this universe. Which is a very personal topic for me. You know, I am a father, my son is 2 years old. So by the time this MMO comes out, he's going to be just the right age to heal my raids.
Okay guys, that's it with races and classes of Riot's MMO according to lore by Necrit. Yeah, a lot of races, potential races that you guys can play, and potential classes that you can make, or that you know, choose which one you want to be. And yeah, it is going to be an interesting game. In terms of, you know, how the story is going to develop, I'm not entirely sure. Like, I know like the main enemies are going to be the Watchers, right? But before the Watchers, what else is there? What else are you guys going to be doing exactly? Who are you going to be fighting against or fighting for? You know, that's also something that's important to know about. Or will it be even more concentrated? Like if you're in Piltover, you have to, you know, figure out criminal cases that involve people who use magic or people who use technology and magic together. You know, is it going to be far more concentrated like that, or is it going to be something that affects regional areas or maybe even continents? You know, for instance, if Ionia and Noxus head into another war, you know, will you be able to participate in that war? On which side will you be on? You know, and then of course you'll have the main event, which will be the Watchers and their plans of trying to destroy Runeterra. So yeah, there are a lot of possibilities, a lot of races that you can choose to play as. But with me, I think I would become a Yodel, just because they're so cute, you know. And yeah, I think I'd become a Yodel. I don't know if they use magical abilities. I know that they are made out of magical essence, but I'm not sure if they can use magical abilities. But definitely I would choose them as my first race that I would use. And then as a class, it will have to be something attributing to time magic. I really like that notion of using time magic. How would I use it, or how, you know, the Riot would, you know, make people or players use time magic, I'm not entirely sure, but that is something that I would be interested in knowing more about. And yeah guys, this was good, this was really good by Necrit, and hopefully to see you guys in the next video. Remember, if you want to check out the original video as well as Necrit's YouTube channel, the links are in the description below. If you like my reaction, please give me a like, comment and subscribe to my channel. Click on the notification bell if you want to be up to date with my latest videos, and I'll see you guys next week, Wednesday. Yes, okay, bye bye.